Hey, welcome back guys, and today in this video we are going to create a collection entity so that the URLs that we have created so far are basically part of a collection so that it makes some logical sense to group certain URLs into certain kinds of collections. On top of it, the one more reason to add the concept of collection is that certain kinds of settings, for example, the users who will be notified when a URL is down and stuff like that, ideally I would want on a collection level so that I can create a collection for a site or a project and have multiple URLs in that, and assign one user for the entire collection of those URLs. So to do that, the first thing is obviously creating the collection entity and writing tests for the listing of the collections API. So as you can see, I have added a test inside my code base called collection list test. What it does is it shows page for authenticated users only. Now that we have our authentication mechanism, I have started adding this check. It shows a list of collections. It shows only logged in user collections, and it shows paginated data. That is, I felt these are the four tests which should primarily run. So let's see how those are done. I'll collapse everything and let's go to our test. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 tests. I've also opened up the merge request because what I typically do is whenever I'm working on a feature, I would create a feature branch, which is a very common practice, and then I would write that code over there. And then finally, when the entire feature development is done, I'll create a merge request and I will squash that into one commit so that every feature is going into the master branch as one particular commit. Okay, so let's say I have around 13 files, but many of them are pretty straightforward. So the first thing is obviously I ran a linting and style check using Laravel pint. So these styling checks came in, not very important right now. We can just close that out. I have this collection controller. So let's open that up. Collection controller. So as you can see, this particular controller has only one method right now, which is index, and it is doing a collection.query where creator ID is the current author ID, auth user ID, and I'm doing a paginated object with per page set to 10. So then the question is, what is the collection model looking like? Let's open it up. So the collection model has a few properties. First one is a private protected property called fillable. I have name and creator ID, and a collection has a relation, which is a collection has many URLs. So let's see, if we have this kind of a relationship, then how does the database look? So as you expected, the collection has only two fields right now, a name and a creator ID. Those are the two things which I have added in the fillable column. Fillable property. Okay, so the migration is clear now. Because we have looked at the controller, the model, the migration, why don't we also look at the collection factory? Because we have tests, so obviously we will need the factory to create collections. So the definition says that the name is going to be faker name, and creator ID is something which we are using the user factory create and then the ID. Okay, pretty straightforward. So let's see, we have looked at the controller. Fair enough. We've looked at the collection. We saw that it has a protected fillable property, URL relationship. Now, obviously, I also had to make some changes to my URL model. So let's quickly look at that as well. I'll close the rest of the stuff and url.php. In here, I have collection and I'm saying that URL belongs to many collections. Okay. And now that I look at it, I don't think a URL can belong to many. It should be belongs to. Right. Let's see. My test should pass. There's no change. The only thing is, the relation was wrong. Okay. It would have created an impact when I'm doing the creates and stuff like that. Let me also see if my seeds are working. Yes, it is. By the way, which MRS? My MRS is basically PHP Artisan Migrate Refresh and Seed. Okay, so it typically regenerates the entire database for me. Okay, fair enough. So this is one change which I'll have to commit again. So obviously this MR needs one more commit. But yeah, so there are certain changes in the URL model. Okay, that precisely one particular thing. I added the relationship. So let's close it out as well. We have viewed it. We looked at the collection factory. So that's clear. In the URL factory, obviously we had to make a change, which is, the URL now belongs to a collection, right? We just saw that, we have added that particular field. And obviously this is how I am creating it, right? Because there is this factory, we have also the create URL migration where I have added this foreign ID. So maybe I'm going based on the EMMA, but believe me, what I have done basically is that, I have added this one more column to my URLs table, which is collection ID, because this collection ID is now mapped to the URL table as a column, right? I made a change to my model, I added the relation, and also my factory method had that change. Okay, just so that you have some visual reference, I have this collections table. As you can see, I have one collection over here called office collection. Creator ID is the author, the creator. For now, it's Amitav Roy. Okay, and that's the collection. And in the URLs, as you can see, I have the collection ID, which gives me the relation that this particular URL belongs to this particular collection. Okay. All right. So we have a clear understanding of the URL factory. Let's close that out. We looked at the table code. By the way, one quick note here. I have modified the migration file because right now my project has still not gone to production. Okay, I have the liberty to make changes to my migration files because I am still in an active development phase. But once you have hit production, you cannot do this. You cannot roll back a table and then rerun it. So the only option is you create a new migration file, which will only have this particular change. Okay, just keep in mind of that thing once you have gone to production. Okay, so the collections is something which we have seen. The collection table migration file is pretty straightforward. Only 2 columns are added. Now the database seeder. Obviously there are certain kinds of changes that I had to make. Let me explain it to you. Database seeder. So because I now have a collection relationship, what I did was first I got this user into a variable Amitav. Okay, this is here we don't have any change. Then what I'm doing is I'm creating this collection. Okay, I'm naming it collection, dollar collection, right? And creator is Amitav ID. Now, because my collection has a relationship called URLs, I can run the create method on that relationship, and I am giving the field URL. So what happens is, let's look at the database. So in the URL, I'm passing this, right? The URL column, and collection ID is coming because I'm using the relationship. So similarly, I got this second URL as well, because if you remember, I already had this code around adding some failure related data, right? So I'm adding these 5 items over here, and yeah, everything now is created using the relationship. So these are the changes which I have done to my database seeder. This particular seeder, right, is what I'm using to populate my database every time I'm making any major change. So obviously our tests have a URL. So what I have over here is api.php. I have a resource controller, so collection controller. I'm naming it with the URL collection. Okay, it's a resourceful route, so I get a lot of URLs there, but right now I have only created a few, not even a few, only one, which is the index. Okay, I will stub them out eventually, but yeah, that's the plan, right? So these are some of the changes that I have made, and as you can see, the resource collection is inside the auth guard. I need to bring the URL one as well, by the way. Okay, web has removed HTTP. This is part of pint, and so now let's deep dive into our test, because I think this is the only file which is pending. So why don't we look at here? So the first test is it shows page for authenticated users only. So I am making a get JSON request to this route collection.index, and I'm asserting that it is unauthorized. Fair enough, this is done. The next thing is it shows a list of collections. So I create a user. Okay, although it was not required, but I wanted to ensure that that user's collection is being shown below. So I have this user. I create 2 collections where the creator ID is this particular user which we just created. Then, as acting as this particular user which we just created using the factory, we log in. So this basically tells the framework that all the API calls that are going to be made will be as a logged in user, which is this. Okay, I'm making a get JSON call to again the same route, and then I'm asserting certain things on the JSON. The first one is that it has data.data paginated data, right? And the 0th name should be the collection.first.name. Okay, so if I can do that, I am ensuring that the first item is coming in the collection. Fair enough. It only shows logged in user collection. So I have 2 users over here. I create 2 collection using user 1. Okay, as you can see, that's the creator ID. And then I log in as user. And when I hit this URL, okay, a get JSON request, I'm asserting that data.data has 0 items. Why? Because you must have seen that my collection is picking up only those collections where the creator ID is the current logged in user. So that is done. And obviously, I'm also asserting that the data which is coming is a paginated data. So I have data.links and I have data.perpage. These are 2 fields which I know typically come only with the paginated data. So yeah, that's where the test cases are. And with this, the functionality is done. Okay, by the way, I had bumped up the PHP version based on my own machine's PHP version. So yeah, that's about it, guys. That is the merge request that I have created. Obviously, there's one more change. Let me add that. Get status. Right, so maybe git add, and hey, just a second, why the second file git diff? Let's quickly check that. Okay, I just removed that particular empty or commented line, right, which is fine. Let me quickly run the pint, and there was one change. Okay, it removed the unused import, which is good. So git add, git commit message is fixed the relationship and cosmetic changes. Okay, this is done. Git push. That's done. Let's quickly come over here. I have this merge request. Oops, what happened? Yeah. Right, so it has 2 commits, and let's look at the final file. I should see the url.php where collection is belongs to and not belongs to many. Right, so this is what was the latest change. Just to confirm, even the database seeder now has removed this commented file, so I mean line. So yeah, we are generally good. We can do something over here, which is, I won't delete the branch, I'll squash the commit and I'll edit the message. Let's see what we have over here. Added code for collection listing with tests. Right, this is fine. Closes this. Okay, so yeah, that's done. Merge to the master. So in the next video we will look at the functionality of creating a collections and stuff like that. But yeah, this is done. So far so good. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, do click on the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.